All right, welcome to Alabama Gristmill. Good to have you join us today about a little bit of history. I'm Mike Causey with my co-host Donna Causey. How you doing?
I'm doing well today.
Get your coffee in the morning here.
I'm trying to get my good cup of coffee. You had to have a lot of coffee to get me going.
There you go. As do me.
That's
well.
my fuel.
It's good to get going. And we've got an interesting story here with us today that we're going to cover. It's about just 5 miles north of Florence in Lauderdale County, Alabama. We've got there's a house. Well, not a house anymore. There's how many columns you said?
There's 24 columns standing. That's all it is. Nobody know how big it was. But that give you an idea how big it was. But what I like about it is the ghost story too.
Yes, it's a lot of history, and the only thing remaining is the 24 columns, and the place is called Forks of Cypress.
Right.
And it is kind of a former house that stood as a crown jewel atop on a hill for many years, and a lot of history, and a lot of technological advances for the time as well. So
yeah, believe it or not, it had an air-conditioned basement in Alabama. Can you imagine that in 1822, having an air-conditioned basement?
I call that a requirement.
In Alabama, yeah. We started back then thinking about air conditioning, I guess. You had to find a way to keep things cool.
It wasn't just a feature. It's a requirement nowadays.
Right.
But we have that's out there, and we'll be covering that. But first, we don't have any sponsors or commercials for this podcast. We operate from our patrons, and you can become a patron and help support us at alabamapioneers.com. And all the funds for that go directly back into making these podcasts and keeping everything as free as possible, getting that information out there. So we really appreciate that.
Yeah, we love our patrons that keep us going. They keep the lights on, as you can say. That's an old phrase.
Yeah, I
like these old phrases. Of course, we can manage to keep the lights on, but I mean, it just sounds good.
And we do want to mention, if you do become a patron, you do get features, and we have goals we reach, and we send copies of our ebooks, and we've got a special running now. And once we hit our next goal, you'll get a copy of all our previous ebooks we released to patrons.
Yes, and we added another thing. Okay. There's a special thing. I'm trying to put the Alabama Footprint Series books that we have. I'm putting 4 of them, the last 4 together, in a big book. And when I finish that, I'm going to put at the end an appendix and list the names of all our patrons that have supported us over the years as of June 1st. So, June 5th, I think is the date. And so that way, I'm trying to acknowledge all the help that they've given to us over the time. So if you're our patron, if you join before June 5th, you could be listed in my new book in the appendix as a supporter of Alabama Pioneers.
Right, and we appreciate that. And again, you can just go to the alabamapioneers.com website, click Become a Patron, and just follow the little instructions there, and that'll take care of that. Well, let's go ahead and get into the story now. You can tell us a little bit of, because it's a good story, and it's not too lengthy, but it kind of follows.
No, it's not. Some of them are shorter, and some of them, you just got to get off the back, man. Right. And if you want to know more, you go to the website. There are pictures of the Forts of Cypress. That's the name of this mansion that was built by pioneer James Jackson, an Irishman who came to Alabama before she even became a state. And so there's the drawings of it and everything. It was a beautiful mansion. Jackson helped organize the Cypress Land Company, which platted the city of Florence, Alabama. And the sale of this land brought a rush of people to Tennessee Valley. A lot of them were investors, and even some presidents invested in North Alabama. Jackson was popular, and he was named president of the Alabama Senate. The Forts of Cypress was built, like you said, on a hill, which offered a commanding view of everything below. The land had been owned previously by Chief Doublehead. Doublehead was given that land by the federal government when he stopped fighting the whites that were moving into the area. And the name of the Forts of Cypress was given because the Big Cypress and Little Cypress creeks bordered the plantation and merged beyond the entrance. The mansion was designed by a famous architect of the time, William Nichols. And as I said, it's only 24 towering columns that are still there. They were handmade on the premises, by the way. They were surrounded the dwelling on all four sides. The bases were cut from native stone and tapered upward. Windows followed the simple lines throughout the mansion, so they had large windows to bring in the breeze in the Alabama heat. And the interior was grand. It had a T-shaped hall and a broad arch at the wide end of the hall, so you can imagine the view of it if you have a big ball or something there. There were 4 great bedrooms upstairs, which accommodated the numerous visitors, particularly young people who loved to go there for the balls. The cellar was dug below the ground to store food because it was cool in the summer and warm in the winter. And they did something unusual there. They put 12-inch slit openings, which gave ventilation from beneath each window across the whole front of the veranda. And since the top of the basement was lower than the top level of the brick porch, the small slits, a foot deep and a foot wide, ran the width of each window and gave light and air to the cellar below. Thus, the cellar was air conditioned. The walls around these slit openings were cut from limestone with notched stone grooves at all the corners, each dovetailing into the other and interlocking with a remarkable evenness. A great Cypress log was taken down into the cellar, and it was hollowed out with vat-like sections, and it was used for water storage, so they were able to get some cool water even down there with the cool air coming in. Jackson and his wife, Sally Moore McCulloch Jackson, lived like aristocrats and reared a house full of children. He was a lover of racehorses, and racehorses were popular during that time. And even Andrew Jackson came down there to visit and have races with his racehorses. Jackson built a stable where thoroughbreds were bred and became national champions. Jackson died, though, in 1840, and his wife Sally was left alone to keep the plantation going. Even after all the horses and the slaves left after the war between the states, she managed to keep his plantation in shape. The Union forces used the land as a base camp when they came through. What's kind of unique about this is if you remember the book Alex Haley's Ancestors, when he wrote Roots and all, he also wrote a book called Queen. And Queen lived on that plantation, so the Forest Office provided a setting for much of his book, Queen, the story of an American family. So you can watch that movie and you kind of see some things from it. Sally lived to the age of 90, and she's buried with her husband in the family burial ground in the back of the house. That's a remarkable age for that day. Sadly, though, the main house was struck by lightning June 6, 1966, and it burned completely to the ground. And the site is now the property of the state of Alabama, and it has been placed on the National Register of Historic Places, and it was placed on it on October 10, 1997, so they've been taking care of it since then. Only the brick pillars and outbuildings, as well as the family cemetery, remain, but there are many ghost stories around the Forest of Cypress. There's an abandoned bridge on the plantation called the Ghost Bridge, where paranormal activity is supposed to take place. People claim to hear singing and voices in the area surrounding the property, and some claim they've even seen the apparition of a woman walking the grounds. One time a reporter stayed at the house for 3 days, and he was said to have heard gunshots, a woman scream, footsteps, and a very loud bang. I don't think I'd be a little nervous. I was trying to stay in out of that situation. And so other people say the ghost of a former slave is said to be seen traveling to visit his wife that lived at a different plantation. And those who go to the Jackson Family Cemetery also report seeing a woman moving around looking for a lost loved one. There's a lot of ghost activity around the area. There were so many people there, I guess, over the years.
Well, it was such a ominous, not an ominous, I love looking at it now. I mean, with the pillars and the columns that are out there now.
Yeah, if you go to the website, I've written a story about it, and there's some pictures from 1934 before it burned, so you'll get to see it and what it looked like then. And there's also pictures of the the floor plan on the website when it was still standing. And so you can see that there's a film. There's a film, too, a man describing it and telling what he saw. Several films on it. There's a lot of history with it.
I can't imagine how nice that air conditioning was, too, to, people that have been traveling around at the time and then staying in the house going, wow, this is comfortable.
Yeah, sit out there on the veranda, those slits. I mentioned that cool air coming from that basement, coming up. It'd be kind of nice. I'd want to get around those little slits in the cement. In the limestone to get the cool from that basement.
It just always amazes me, all the the ruins you see on the side of the road or in the woods, and the history behind it, and then people who have visited there and stayed there. The history, books have been written in this case about it.
Oh, and there's lots of books.
Some of our followers on Facebook who actually had stayed there.
Yeah, they actually stayed there, and there was some of them lived around there and used to visit it a lot, and they actually stayed there occasionally because they knew the family and people who owned it and all. One was particularly interesting, Philip Anderson, who wrote that his dad salvaged a table from the Forts of Cypress. And a lot of people said they remember seeing that table and all. So it was tragedy when it burned for the community because it was such a wonderful site to visit, But it still is. And you can see pictures and know what was there. It's nice to go there and look at the website and see the Alabama Pioneers website. And you can see the pictures and then go out there and you can imagine what was taking place there.
And that's one of the the comments that we had on this article when we posted it on the website. It's what I like about the Alabama Pioneers and doing this is one of the things is just having the people that were actually involved or relatives of people involved actually coming in and chiming in and helping us correct the history in some cases, and in some cases you add more color to it.
Sometimes the history was recorded wrong. It always is wonderful when we get somebody from the family to say, hey, no, that's not quite right. The name's a little off or, whatever. We have, and we try to correct those as quickly as we can. We don't get to them all, but they stay there with the comments. So put them in the comment section on the website so we can know about it.
And it's like any history, it's recorded, but then it could be somebody's opinion and then somebody has a different viewpoint down the road.
Right.
And the best thing to do is have all that information out there so everybody can make a decision on what you believe.
But that's what I'm saying. Put both in most issues, in most situations and events that happen, there are two sides to every story, and I like to just put both sides out there and let everybody make up their own mind who they want to believe and what they want to believe. We put a lot of there's controversy about which is right in history. We always get that all the time. But I feel like it's better. We're intelligent enough. We can figure out the real answer.
And you see it even in modern day. Even modern day events that happened hours or days ago, even with all the technology and camera phones, everybody has a different opinion. So the more information you have is always better. That way you can make your own decision from that. So we're trying to bring that.
Yeah, trying to bring both sides to the forward in our history. There's a lot of things, the historians, they recorded the best they could, but they recorded from their perspective. When you add others' perspective in, it always makes the story better and more true. So you can see what's going on.
That's the whole goal here, is to get as much out there as possible.
I guess that's why the police go around and they ask a bunch of people when something happens, They ask a bunch of people what happened, they get the whole story. So you get a little part here, put it together, and you got a great story.
That's the goal we shoot for, is to help get as much information out there. So that's kind of what we do here. And this is another example of that, a story that, you may have gone by and seen the Forks of Cypress or these the columns and wondered what they are. Now you know.
If you ever visited there or you stayed there and or you went by and saw a ghost, they're always good. Wonderful to share, too. I like these ghost stories.
It's always good. They're always fun. Well, we'll go ahead and wrap this episode up and with Alabama Gristmill and the Forks of Cypress, and we'll see you next time on Alabama Gristmill.
Goodbye.
Joe dancing round on his toes, throws away his crutch and hollers, hey, let her go, oh honey.